Last video, I tackled something pretty tragic. It featured a flood in which people actually died. That sort of thing does tend to happen during disasters, but I don't want this show to only ever be depressing. To counteract this, I've chosen to focus on a much more light-hearted disaster this week. This is the story of the Great Michigan Pizza Funeral. Mr. Mario Fabrini was an Italian man who immigrated from Rijeka, Yugoslavia, to Osiniki, Michigan, in the United States, where he began making pizzas for a living. What began as a small business grew into a rather large operation, and eventually Fabrini had a plant which produced about 45,000 frozen pizzas every week. In 1973, the FDA conducted some tests which found botulism, a bacterial infection which can affect canned food, in the mushrooms used on Fabrini's pizzas. And in response, Fabrini decided to dispose of all the mushroom and cheese pizzas he had in his inventory. This would have been anywhere from 30 to 44,000 pizzas in total, which is a lot of pizza to simply throw away. In an effort to show his accountability and promote his business at the same time, Fabrini decided to host a massive funeral for the contaminated pizzas and dispose of all of them in a single mass grave. You heard me correctly there too. He didn't burn the pizzas, he didn't throw them away. He decided to bury them in a mass grave. And those are the words of the newspapers and himself, rather than me. He turned the whole thing into quite an event, and reportedly hundreds of people attended. This would have included his staff, the local residents of Osiniki, reporters from various newspapers, and even William G. Milliken, the governor of Michigan at the time. Governor Milliken even recited a eulogy of sorts for the pizzas. He also ate Fabrini's pizzas, which were being served at the event, to prove that Fabrini's other pizzas were still safe to eat. After the pizzas were properly buried, Fabrini laid a wreath made from red gladiolus and white carnations on the grave, the colors of which were meant to symbolize the cheese and the sauce of the pizza. The whole event is just hilarious for many reasons. This man turned an FDA order to destroy contaminated food into a public event, and he even got the governor to both attend and speak at it. The photos of the event are both haunting and comical. They have an eerie quality to them, which is best described as documentation of some kind of war crime. The absurdity comes from the fact that the victims of this war crime were in fact mushroom and cheese pizzas. None of this was lost on the public or the press. One of the newspapers I used as a source even describes the pizzas as having been executed by the US government and the burial spot as a mass grave. The whole thing seems like it was played up as some kind of joke, obligation, and publicity stunt, all in one event. In total, Fabrini lost anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 because of the contaminated mushrooms. I know that range is quite large, but all of my sources had different numbers, if they had any at all. Although he won a subsequent case against the canning company who he purchased the mushrooms from, this didn't really prevent them from doing business with him in the future. What makes this whole event even more insane is that in the end, it was all for nothing. The FDA actually rescinded their ruling on the contaminated pizzas, saying the tests had been faulty. None of these pizzas which were executed had actually even been contaminated. Papa Fabrini's would continue to make frozen pizzas until they eventually went out of business in the late 1980s. I think that even though this was a publicity stunt of sorts, the support shown by the community was actually rather strong, and it emphasized how appreciated Fabrini was in Osiniki. He was an interesting man, and definitely a good businessman as well. If you have any ideas for events I should research, feel free to comment below. You can also contact me, Zach, or Sam on our Discord server, which is linked below. All sources used are referenced in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.